Welcome to the Masterclass Series in Health, Physical, and Driver Education. This Masterclass Series recognizes the immense responsibility you carry as an educator. This series of videos are presented by your peers, fellow educators who are passionate about sharing their knowledge and experiences with you.
Good morning from the campus of James Madison University. This is Cindy Ferek, and we're going to be sharing some resources with you. This can be used K through 12, and you can use it for any kind of discipline that you want. I use this for driver's education, and I have roadways set up here in this room. You could put this in a gymnasium, a classroom. Last year I presented this in a ballroom. These were all chairs and 200 participants. And I had 30 to 40 kids on bicycles every single day. You can put this out on a tennis court, a grass field, so endless possibilities. The limitations are your creativity. So we want to just show you some ideas today and what you can implement in your class. So I call this one way, two way, right away, wrong way. And there's different standards for the driver's education standards that we will implement today. But you can also use movement patterns. If you're in elementary, skipping, hopping, jumping, walking, you can do all of that and then teach them a roadway. And that's what these roadways are set up here today. So I'm going to show you some of the supplies that I used that we have here. And so what I have is a stop sign. This would actually be what I'd use day one every single year. The students would walk in and they would follow these one-way signs. And I'd be up at the podium and I'd have the roster for my students. And they'd come to the stop sign and I'd say, "Hi, my name's Miss Ferek." And they would shake my hand and I'd look them in the eye and, "What's your name?" And they would tell me their name. And so one of my favorite memories was probably 10, 15 years ago, this young lady walked in and she literally lit up the room with her smile. And I told her my name and she told me her name was Bethany. And I said, "I hope you never lose that smile." Well, then fast forward 10, 15 years later, I got an email from a former student of mine, and he said, "Miss Ferek, can we meet? I'm thinking about becoming a pilot, and I would like to just talk with you. Can we meet at a coffee shop?" And I said, "Sure." So he meets me at the coffee shop, and he had asked if he could bring his wife. I said, "Sure." So when they walk in and sit down at the booth, who is his wife? But that young lady that I remembered all of those years ago that lit up the room with a smile, and you know what? She still has that same smile. And she did this activity. She walked up and introduced herself to me. But I love this activity because I could save my voice. It allowed me to see the students from day one, the minute they walked into my class. Who follows directions, who doesn't. It gave them order. And then, but what I love too is that I could find out their name and I didn't have to embarrass them mispronouncing their name in front of the entire class. That's their first impression of me for the rest of the year. And so I was teaching social skills, how to shake hands, how to look people in the eye. And so it was a great intro. And it was these polydots. So these polydots, I have it in the slides there that you can see where you can purchase those. I've been using these for years and years. They're very durable, they're non-slippery, and so they work fantastic. They come in a pack. You have green ones, you have do not enter, so they're multicolors, and so you can use those. You're also going to see that I use these lines. This is poster board, big white sheets of poster board, and I bought yellow paint, and I painted these. And I could get 5 of these on a piece of poster board and sliced them up. And so when we do the pavement markings, you will see these on the ground. Very inexpensive. And just took a little time. If I was going to use these repetitively, I would just laminate them, and then they would last for years and years and years. So I like to show people things that they can use in their classroom that don't take a lot of money. The cones I use all the time, but you could use sidewalk chalk. I've used the chairs, like if you're in a classroom, just use the chairs to make the squares. So that's what we're going to be doing today, and showing you how to make different patterns. These patterns, there's about 11 patterns. I would not do all of these in one day, but one would go into the next to the next. So the progression starts simple, and then it gets more complex as you go on through the weeks or the semester. And then you determine when to move to the next one based on how the students are moving through your roadways. So let's get started. So I just showed you how this first activity would be day one, and then we're going to progress into the very first pattern that's going to be here. This is a one-way street with one lane, and the students would all be in this outer area. The middle lanes are closed, and we're just going to walk. So I use music to start and stop. So at the beginning, when they hear the music, they would start walking. So we're going to demonstrate what it would look like, and the music would begin. Ready, go. So we'd be walking, and single file around the outer perimeter. And like I said, I did this last summer with over 200 people in a huge ballroom. I'm also seeing, do they follow directions? Are they messing around? It's nice to see their level at the simplest progression. And what was nice too is I would have students in class and they'd say, hey Joe, you're going the wrong way. So they would end up correcting themselves instead of me having to correct them if I had a student that would get out of line. So that was neat to be able to see. So there's pattern one. Pattern two is where we're going to actually flip these around and go the other direction. So if you have students, I would just say stop, the music would stop, and then I would have, if they're near an arrow, they would actually turn that arrow around. Okay, so pattern two is still one way, one lane, going around the outer perimeter, and the middle lanes are not open. So the music would start, go, the students would start walking, going around the outer perimeter. You can make your space as big as you want, as small as you want. That's up to you. So my wonderful helper today is Tony Ferek, and he is my assistant. He helped me get all this set up, but he's also showing the movement patterns, and he's also assisting me today in flipping these signs and also setting the roads up. So he's part of my VDOT crew today, helping to build all of our roadways. So the next segment is I would pause everybody. They'd stop wherever they were. They'd still be in the teaching area. And now I'm going to teach signs and signals, because if we're going to communicate, we have to know, we have to tell people what we're doing. They don't know what we're doing. So if I said, we're going to make a right turn, what does a right turn signal do? So Tony can do a right turn signal, and I will do a right turn signal. It's actually with the left hand, and it makes a right angle. So the next one is going to be a left turn. And a left turn is the same arm going straight out. Because on cars, you have turn signals. But if we're on a bike or if we're walking, we've got to tell people what we're doing. So then the third one is going to be a stop. And that's where we bend our elbow down to the ground. That way nobody runs into us from behind. And then slow down is going to be angled down, just our hand back behind us. So as we go to move, we're going to open up these middle lanes. This middle lane will now become a two-way street. And as you get to the end, you see there will be a yield sign. So now we're learning what yield means. You have to pause or stop if there's someone coming. Well, when we had 200 people, there were obviously lots of people going. And if you had a class, today we don't have anybody else that will be coming down the roadway, but if you had a big class of students, that would be the case. So as we come down through here, we're going to have one way, one lane, left turns only. So we'll have to give a signal before we make that turn. And when you get to the end of the pathway, you've got to make sure it's clear before you go. So I'll demonstrate that. I'm going to make this left turn here, and I'm coming down. I'm going to make a left turn, but Mr. Tony's on the outer lane, so I've got to wait till he goes by me. It's clear. Now I can enter the one-way traffic. I can also use this lane, or I could keep going straight. This is where the students get some choices. Yield, I have to pause because he's coming. Now, he may choose to stay in the outer lanes. That's fine. Again, I like to give the students choice, so this would be a different pattern. And so we'll pause here. The music would start while the students are going. Now the music would stop. What we're going to do is we're going to flip all the signs and make the new pattern. Again, the students will stop. They just turn the signs. So we're going to go the other direction. So our next pattern, we're going to be doing one way, one lane, right turns only, and the middle lanes are going to be open for traffic. So it looks like this. If we're coming down here and I want to make a right turn, I use my left arm, and I'm going to be coming in here into the center. And I have a yield sign. So since nobody's coming, I can go ahead and make my turn. And Mr. Ferek, as he comes down, he can make a right turn. I can also come here, and I can just continue to go straight. Students decide whether they go straight or whether they want to turn. But if you turn, you have to communicate, and you have to give a turn signal. Look both ways. You can come here. I can just stay in this little block. So I'd pause the music. Anytime the students are moving, I have music going. And so then the next pattern, what we're going to do is we're going to build still one-way traffic, but we're going to add a lane. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the painted poster boards that I used earlier. So we're going to pick those up in white lines, divide traffic going the same direction. So we're going to build roads that are one way, two lanes. Broken lines signify that you can pass. So what we have here is one-way traffic. We have two lanes. We're not going to open up the middle. We're just going around the outer perimeter, having students in two lanes. And what I like to ask is which lane is the fast lane or the passing lane? So if you are passing, you pass on the left side. So if you switch lanes, you need to give a signal, look over your shoulder, and move into the other lane. If you are not passing, you need to be in the right-hand lane. So here we go. The music would start, and everybody would be in these two outer lanes moving around. Obviously, if you had more students, then they could pass. But let's say I'm just coming along, and I'm going really, really slow, and Mr. Ferek decides he wants to go around me. He has to be in the outer lane. And once he passes me, then he would get back over, give a right turn signal, and slide over. Okay, so then the next pattern, we already have going down this direction right turn lanes. We've already done right turn signals. Right, so what we have here is one-way traffic, two lanes with right turns. So as I come down here, I'm going to make my right turn signal. I'm going to turn right, come down the middle. Yield sign, I have to wait till it's clear. Then I'm going to make a turn. Again, if I turn here, I've got to give a turn signal, or the students can stay in the outer perimeter. So you'd have students going around the outer part or in the middle. So the next pattern would still be one-way traffic, two lanes, but what we're going to do is we're going to flip these around and go the other direction. So what we have here is traffic going one way. We have two lanes. The middle lanes are closed, and this time the outer lane would be the passing lane, because if you're on the inside, you want to be able to turn eventually. So outer lane's passing. So here we go. The music would start. Everybody's moving. So the next pattern, I'd stop the music, and now we're going to do left turns only. So we would give a left turn signal. We have to be in this inner lane to turn left, and then we can use the middle lanes. If you're in the outer lane, you may not turn. Ready? Begin. So I'm going to give a left turn signal. Turn down the middle here. Again, I have a yield sign. No one's coming. I can go ahead and make my turn. When I turn, I have to turn into the closest lane. A lot of people turn into the outer lane. So if I come here, I have to turn into this closest lane. Okay, so the next pattern that we have here is going to be two-way traffic. And so the lane I'm standing in would be going that direction, and the lane out there would be going that direction. Two-way traffic is designated by yellow lines. Broken means you can pass. Solid means you cannot pass. So we're going to have solid double yellow lines here so that there is no passing. And again, the students would just fold these over. Takes just maybe 30 seconds for them to build a road. So for this pattern, we have two-way traffic designated by the yellow lines, and they are solid, which means no passing. So there's not going to be any turning, the middle lanes are closed, and it's single lane. So you'll see how we'll pass each other. Ready? The music would start, go. And then when you come around the other side, again, you're in your lane, but you have two-way traffic. He's on that side, I'm on this side. Stop the music, and then move on to the next pattern, which would be allowing passing. So for passing, you have a single line. So what we're going to do is we're going to take up these and make a broken line, Tony. So take up one side and pick up every other just on the long straightaways. So this time we still have two-way traffic designated by the yellow lines, but we have a broken line, which indicates passing is allowed, but passing is only allowed when the way is clear, that you could get over into that lane and get back. And as you can see, he's coming in the opposite direction, so I would not be allowed to pass here because it's not safe. The lines indicate that I can, but it's not safe to do so. So the music would start, and you can pass on the long straightaways if the gap is open. Ready? Go. And over here, I don't need to pass because I don't have anybody to pass, but the broken light indicates that I would be able to. Double yellow lines, no passing on the straight stretches here. Music stops, then they know we're going to move on to the next pattern. Okay, so now we're going to put a solid line beside the broken line. And it doesn't have to be near the corners because you can't pass on the corners anyway. So for this pattern, we have two-way traffic, one lane on each side, and you can see how we have a broken line and a solid line. So the side that has a broken line would permit passing if it is clear. As you can see, Mr. Ferek sliding and going around me. Now, if there's a car coming the other way, you cannot go. Or if you're on the solid line side, you may not pass. So again, the center lanes are not open, but we would stay around the outer perimeter doing this pattern. So as I come up here, he's going too slow. I look over my shoulder. It's clear the other direction, and I slide back over into the other lane. And I have to get over before my broken line ends. So those are like the progressions of the patterns. Notice I didn't open up the middle lanes for those. So you can do several. You can do multiples of these. I like to review them. But the thing is to get the kids up out of the seats and see what they know, see what they learn. And they enjoy manipulating the lines and moving those. What we're going to do next is called sign color recognition. And what I use this one for, it's kind of like when you were at the roller skating rink and they would stop the music and you had to go to the four corners. And so what we do was when the music starts, you stay in the pattern of movement that we've created here, but when I call out a type of sign, you have to walk to that color. And so there's orange, there's green, there's blue, black, there's multiple colors on the wall all the way around the room. But they have to stay on the roadway. They can't just hop across the median and go wherever they want, so they have to stay on the roadway to do that. So the music would start, everybody starts moving. So Mr. Ferek's going to be moving there. And what I would do is I would stop the music and I would say rest areas, roadside services. So I don't tell them what color they have to go to. They have to know that. So as they walk around, so what is a rest area or a roadside services? And we can see he stopped at the blue, which is correct. What was neat is I did this activity one time, and in a class of 30, I had all these kids at different ones, and I had one student at one color. And I walked over and I said, John's standing here by this orange color sign. Is he correct? I was like, he's correct. Nice job. He was the only kid out of the entire class that went to that color. That kid was beaming. He was so excited, and it was really neat to praise him just in this basic activity, because to me, what courage it took to go stand by himself to say, I think this is the right answer. So again, I'd start the music. They would start walking back around into the movement area, and I'd say, school zone. And so they have to walk, and then they would stop, and right here I have a five-sided yellow piece of paper, or yellow over there. I'm looking for colors. Some people might stop by the yellow on the floor. That's fine, because we're looking for yellow. So we go through, and then we have national forest. We have parks and recreation historical markers. That would be the brown. Then we have construction, which would be orange. And then we have the guide signs or destination, which would be green. We have green over there. And we have caution, warning, and regulatory, which can be the red, the black, or the white, such as the do not enter signs. So that's sign color recognition. You can do that inside the gym. You could, have them jog. You could do whatever you want to with that. But I want to see if they know the colors that they're going to be seeing out on the roadway. So for the next segment, what we're going to do is they're going to build a rest area off the side. So we would have the roadway here, and then they've got parking spaces. So we can use these over here to make parking spaces. So what I'm looking for is to see how they have the entrance into the rest area and then an exit out of the rest area. Because with movement of vehicles, it's not just everybody go in and it's a free-for-all. There's got to be some order to that. But what's neat is I have the students decide how they're going to create that. So we could do a rest area here. We could do a rest area over there. So for the rest area, they would be moving down the roadway, and then they would give a right turn signal, and then they would pull into the parking space. And you might have 2, 3, 4, 5 students in a line here. And then they can back out of the parking space when it's clear, looking over their shoulder, backing up into the roadway, and then they would proceed forward. They could have angle parking. They could have perpendicular parking. That's up to the students when they create the parking lot. So for the next part, I used exit sheets as a form of assessment to see what my students would know. So I would have just little slips of paper that might have 6 questions on them, and one of them would say, what kind of traffic is divided by white lines? What kind of traffic is divided by yellow lines? And it's something that they could answer 30 seconds to a minute. I hand it to them, they answer it, and then they go in, and then they would leave for the day. So I incorporated exit sheets quite a bit in my classes, and sometimes I would grade them for a grade book, and sometimes it was just to see what did they know and how much did they understand what we were doing. But what I found is this hands-on kinesthetic learning environment really helped the students to retain the information rather than me just lecturing via a PowerPoint in the classroom. So we've built our traffic circle. We could have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups, and they build their traffic circle. So this is the traffic circle that they created. And so notice we have 2-way traffic here. 1-way, we've got multiple exits. So we're going to enter in. You either enter in the inner lane or the outer lane. You can come all the way around. You decide where you exit. What we have here is a left shared turn lane, and you will notice that we have a solid line on the outside and a broken line on the inside. So this pattern is a little different than all the others, and it's unique, but what it's supposed to do is to have you enter that lane and allow traffic here to keep going. So the idea is to get your entire vehicle in that lane. So notice Mr. Ferek's coming at me, and I want to get in too, but we have to go past each other and make sure it's clear. And now if we can't complete our turn, we could stay here and wait till oncoming traffic is beyond us. and then traffic can go by us on the right. A left shared turn lane. So you can be as creative as you want. You can add horse and buggies like we have in the area here. You can have a distracted driver. You could add railroad crossings. Think about the roadways and pathways that you could create to get students moving, to get them thinking, regardless of the grade level, and have some fun with it. And at the end, then they would clean it up or set it up for the next class. I would set this area up in the morning and then use it all day long, and then the very last class, they would clean it up, and they clean it up in just an instant. So it's a fun way to teach and engage their mind without just being in a desk all day long. All these resources are on my website if you'd like to check those out, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I'd love to help generate some new ideas for your classroom and give you a spark for your year. Thanks. Have a great day.